Policing yourself, what are the checks and balances that are in place to ensure that there's accountability and transparency?
Well, we actually are trying to be as transparent as possible. In fact, our actions, we post our actions to the Doge handle on X and to the Doge website. So all of our actions are maximally transparent. In fact, I don't think there's been, I don't know of a case where an organization has been more transparent than the Doge organization. So, you know, and the kind of things we're doing are very, very simple and basic. They're not, you know, what I mentioned, for example, about treasury, just making sure that payments that go out, escrow money that goes out, is categorized correctly, that the payment is explained, that organizations that do not pay list, which takes a lot to get there, actually are not paid, which currently they are paid. These are not individual judgment decisions. These are about simply having sensible checks and balances in the system itself to ensure that tax
Billions of dollars in federal contracts. When it comes to the Pentagon, for instance, which the president I know has directed you to look into,
Yeah.
Are you policing yourself in that? Is there any sort of
We can't have captions.
accountability check and balance in place that would provide any transparency for the American people?
Well, all are fully public. So if you see anything, you say like, wait a second, hey, you know, that seems like maybe that's, you know, there's a conflict there. It's not like people are going to be shy about saying that. They'll say it immediately.
Including you yourself.
Yeah. But transparency is what builds trust. Not simply somebody asserting trust. So not somebody saying they're trustworthy, but transparency so you can see everything that's going on. And you can see, am I doing something that benefits one of my companies or not? It's totally obvious.
And we thought that we would not let him do that segment or look in that area if we thought there was a lack of transparency or a conflict of interest. And we watched that also. I said, he's a big businessman, he's a successful guy. That's why we want him doing this. We don't want an unsuccessful guy doing this. Now, one thing also that Elon hasn't really mentioned are the groups of people that are getting some of these payments. They're ridiculous. And we're talking about billions of dollars that we've already found. We found fraud and abuse. I would say those two words as opposed to the third word that I usually use, but in this case, fraud and abuse. It's abusive because most of these things are virtually made up, or certainly money shouldn't be sent to. And you know what I'm talking about, it's crazy. So, but we're talking about tens of billions of dollars that we've already found. And now a judge is an activist judge, wants to try and stop us from doing this. Why would they want to do that? I campaigned on this. I campaigned on the fact that I say government is corrupt. And it is very corrupt. It's very, very, it's also foolish. As an example, a man has a contract for 3 months and the contract ends, but they keep paying him for the next 20 years, you know, because nobody ends a contract. You got a lot of that. You have a contract that's a 3-month contract. Now, normally, if you're in a small, in all fairness, it's the size of this thing is so big.
Yeah.
But if you have a contract and you're in a regular business, you end the contract in 3 months, you know it's a consultant. Here's a contract for 3 months, but it goes on for 20 years. And the guy doesn't say that he got money for 20 years, you know? They don't say it. They just keep getting checks month after month, and you have various things like that, and even much worse than that, actually, much worse. And I guess you call that incompetence, maybe. It could be corruption. It could be a deal's made on both sides, you know, where the guy gets some money, I think he has a lot of kickback here. I see a lot of kickback here, a tremendous kickback, because nobody could be so stupid to give out some of these contracts, so he has to get a kickback. So that's what I got elected for, that and borders and military, and a lot of things, but this is a big part of it. And I hope that the court system is going to allow us to do what we have to do. We got elected to among other things, find all of this fraud and abuse, all of this horrible stuff going on. And we've already found billions of dollars, not like a little bit, billions, many billions of dollars. And when you get down to it, it's going to be probably close to $1 trillion. It could be close to $1 trillion that we're going to find. That will have quite an impact on the budget. And you'll go to a judge where they handpick a judge and he has certain leanings. I'm not knocking anybody for that, but he has certain leanings. And he wants us to stop looking. How do you stop looking? I mean, we've already found it. We have a case in New York where a hotel has paid $59 million, $59 million because it's housing migrants, illegal migrants. All illegal, I believe.
And we're being paid twice the normal room rate at our hotel.
Unbelievable.
So it's a racket.
Yeah.
Well, if I may sort of just hear the President's comments, at a high level, say, well, what are the two ingredients that are really necessary in order to have the budget deficit be half, 3 trillion to 1 trillion? It's really two things: competence and caring. And if you add competence and caring, you'll cut the budget deficit in half. And I fully expect to be scrutinized and get a daily proctology exam, basically. Might as well just camp out there. So it's not like I think I can get away with something. I'll be scrutinized non-stop. But with support of the President, we can cut the budget deficit in half from 2 trillion to 1. And then with deregulation, because there's a lot of sort of regulations that don't ultimately serve the public good. We need to free the builders of America to build. And if we do that, that means you get the economic growth. We may be 3, 4%, maybe 5%. And that means if you get $1 trillion of economic growth, you can cut the budget deficit by $1 trillion. Between now and next year, there is no inflation. There's no inflation in 26. And if the government is not borrowing as much, it means that interest costs decline. So everyone's mortgage, their car payment, their credit card bills, anything, their student debt, the monthly payments go. That's a fantastic scenario for the average American. I mean, imagine they go down the grocery aisle and the prices from one year to the next are the same, and their mortgage, all their debt payments dropped. How great is that for the average American?
We had no idea we were going to find this much, and it's open. It's not like complicated.
It's not that complicated.
It's
a lot of work. Yeah.
You can't believe it. A lot of work, a lot of smart people involved. Very, very smart people. But you're talking about anywhere, maybe 500 billion. It's crazy the kind of numbers
It's really crazy.
Normally when you're looking at something, you'll find you're looking for 1 out of 100. Here, you're almost reversing it. You look for one that's good, and you can look at the title, and you say, why are we doing this? Why are we doing that? And the public gets it. The public gets it. You've seen the polls. The public is saying, why are we paying all this money? This for years. This has gone on. Yeah, go ahead. Wait, go ahead.
Senator Rand Paul today said that DOGE cuts will ultimately need a vote in Congress. Do you agree with that? Is that the
I
plan?
really don't know. I know this. We're finding tremendous fraud and tremendous abuse. If I need a vote of Congress to find fraud and abuse, it's fine with me. I think we'll get the vote, although there'll be some people that wouldn't vote. And how could a judge want to hold us back from finding all of this fraud and finding all of this incompetence? Why would that happen? Why would even Congress want to do that? Now, Congress, if we do need a vote, I think we get a very easy vote because we have a track record now. We've already found billions of dollars of abuse, incompetence, and corruption. A lot of corruption.
If a judge does block one of your policies, part of your agenda, will you abide by that ruling? Will you comply with that order?
Abide by the courts, and then I'll have to appeal it. But then what he's done is he's slowed down the momentum. And it gives crooked people more time to cover up the books. If a person's crooked and they get caught, other people see that, and all of a sudden it becomes harder later on. So, yeah, the answer is I always abide by the courts. I always abide by it. And we'll appeal. But appeals take a long time, and I would hope that a judge, if you go into a judge and you show him, here's a corrupt situation, we have a check to be sent, but we found it to be corrupt. Do you want us to send this corrupt check to a person, or do you want us to have to give it and give it back to the taxpayer? I would hope a judge would say, don't send it, give it back to the taxpayer.
What we're finding is that the budget report is not giving it to Americans. So I think we all agree that if there's going to be a court, it should at least go to America. But a bunch of the programs that are operating in the United States and taking advantage of federal government, especially the entitlement programs, are actually foreign programs that operate in other countries and actually exporting money to other countries. We should stop that. And this is big numbers. Big numbers. We're looking at $100 to $200 billion a year. Serious.
I said on X that an example of the fraud that you have cited was $50 million of funds was sent to Gaza. But after fact check this, apparently Gaza in Mozambique and the program was to protect them against HIV. So can you correct the statements that wasn't sent to him? Was sent there.
Yeah.
And how can we make sure that all the statements that you said were correct, so we can trust what you say?
Well, first of all, some of the things that I say will be incorrect and should be correct. So nobody's going to bat 1,000. I mean, we will make mistakes, but we'll act quickly to correct any mistakes. I'm not sure we should be sending $50 million of funds anywhere, frankly. I'm not sure that's something Americans would be really excited about. That's really an enormous number of funds. But if it went to Mozambique instead of Gaza, I'm like, okay, that's not as bad, but still, why are we doing that?
Can you talk a little bit about how closely you're working with agency heads as you're directing these cuts? Do they have how much input do agency heads have when you're making these decisions?
Yeah, we work closely with the agency heads, yeah. So there are sort of checks in place. So it's not just us just going in and doing things willy-nilly. It's in partnership with the agency heads, and I check frequently with the president to make sure that this is what the president wants to have happen. So almost every day, and I double check things to make sure is this something, Mr. President, if you want us to do this, we'll do it.
USAID has been one of your main targets. Are you concerned at all that some of the cuts or that shutting that agency altogether may lead to diseases or other bigger problems starting in other countries that then come to the United States?
Yeah, so that's an excellent example. So that's something where we work closely with the state departments and the surgery review. And we have, for example, turned on funding for Ebola prevention and for HIV prevention. And we all move fast, so we all make mistakes, but we also fix the mistakes very quickly.
Do you see it as a worthy cause, USAID?
I think that there's some worthy things, but overall, if you say what was the plan for the buck, I would say it was not very good. And there was far too much of what USAID was doing was influencing elections in ways that I think were dubious and do not stand for anything.
I think just have to follow up to the Pentagon contracts. If you have received billions of dollars in contracts from the Pentagon, and the president's directing you to look into the Department of Defense, is that a conflict of interest?
Are going to do at the president's request.
Does that present a conflict of interest for you?
No, because you have to look at the individual contract and say, first of all, I'm not the one, filing the contract. It's people like SpaceX or something who will be finished the contract. And I'd like to say, if you see any contract where it was awarded to SpaceX and it wasn't by far the best value coming from the taxpayer, let me know. Because every one of them was.
The president said the other day that you might look at treasuries. Could you explain that a little bit? What kind of fraud, and that question goes to both of you, what kind of fraud are you expecting to see or do you see right now with U.S. Treasury?
I think really the Treasury Department as opposed to Treasury bills or...
Also reference treasuries on our first on the other.
Well, as I mentioned earlier, we're really the first order of business is to make sure we're actually collecting. Sorry for this. Otherwise, I might enjoy this, but he's sticking his finger in the air. So it's been hard to hear sometimes. Hey, stop that. The stuff we're doing with the Treasury Department is so basic that you can't believe it doesn't exist already. So for example, like I mentioned, just making sure that when a payment goes out, it has to have the payment categorization codes, like what type of payment is this? You can't just leave the field blank. Currently, many times the field is not blank. And you have to describe what's the payment for, some basic rationalization. That also is that way. So this is why the Pentagon, when the last time the Pentagon passed an order, a decade ago maybe, ever, really? in order to actually pass audits, you have to have financial information that allows you to trace the payments. And once in a while, the Treasury has to pause payments if it thinks the payment is going to a fraudulent organization. Like, if a company or organization is on a do not pay list, we should not pay it. I'm sure you would agree. Like, it's quite hard to get on that payment, the do not pay list. That means that this is someone that is just like dead people, terrorists, known fraudsters, that kind of thing. We should not pay them. But currently we do, which is crazy.
And by the way, hundreds, thousands of transactions like that. You know, we have a big team. And for the sake of the country, I hope that the person that's in charge and the other people that report to me that are in charge are allowed to do the right thing, namely make sure everything's honest, legitimate, and competent. But we're looking at just, when you look at USAID, that's one. The USAID is really corrupt. I'll tell you, it's corrupt. It's incompetent and it's really corrupt. And I can't imagine a judge saying, well, it may be corrupt, but you don't have the right. You got elected to look over the country and to, as we say, make America great again, but you don't have the right to go and look and see whether or not things are right that they're paying, or that things are honest that they're paying. And nobody can even believe this. Other people, law professors, they've been saying, yeah, how can you take that person's right away? He's supposed to be running the country, but we're not allowed to look at who they're paying it to and what they're paying. We have massive amounts of fraud that we caught. I think we probably caught way over a lot of billions of dollars already in, 2 weeks?
Yeah.
And it's going to go to numbers that you're not going to believe. And much, as I said, much is incompetence and much is dishonesty. We have to catch it. And the only way we're going to catch it is to look for it. And if a judge is going to say you're not allowed to look for it, that's pretty sad for our country. I don't understand how it could even work.
On the buyout program, can you personally guarantee that the buyout program, the operative federal workers, can you personally guarantee that the workers who opt in to resign now will be paid through
Well, they get
September?
their money, but they're getting a good deal. They're getting a big buyout. And what we're trying to do is reduce government. We have too many people. We have office space. It's occupied by 4%. Nobody's showing up to work because they were told not to. And then Biden gave them a 5-year pass, some of them, 48,000 of them, gave them a 5-year pass. But for 5 years, you don't have to show up to work. And let me tell you, this is largely, much of this stuff is because of Biden. It's his fault. He allowed this country, what he did on our border. What he did on our border is almost not as bad as what he did with all of these contracts that have come out. It's a very sad day when you look at it. I can't even believe it. But many contracts just extend and they just keep extending, and there was nobody there to correct it. And that cannot be, I can't imagine that could be held up by the court. Any court that would say that the president or his representatives, like Secretary of the Treasury, Secretary of State, whatever, doesn't have the right to go over their books and make sure everything's honest. I mean, how can you have a country? You can't have anything that way. You can't have a business that way. You can't have a country that way. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.
On Mark Fogel, what are you
Coming
guys?
back tonight.
You'll be
Mark
back.
Fogel will be at the White House tonight at about 10 o'clock. If you want to come over, you can say hello.
Did the U.S. give anything in return?
Not much. No, they were very nice. Actually, I hope that's the beginning of a relationship where we can end that war and millions of people can stop being killed. They've lost millions of people. They lost, in terms of soldiers, probably 1.5 million soldiers in a short period of time. We got to stop that war. And I'm interested primarily for the in losing all those soldiers. And then and Russian soldiers. But you probably I think, bring that one to an end. Okay? Thank you.
Here's Mr. Musk,
I did what?
including a lot of Democrats, you do, sir,
I don't believe it.
say that you're orchestrating a hostile takeover of government and doing it in a non-transparent way. What's your response to that criticism?
Well, first of all, you couldn't ask for a stronger mandate from the public. The public voted, we have a majority of the public voting for President Trump. Who won the House, who won the Senate. The people voted for major government reform. There should be no doubt about that. That was on the campaign. The president spoke about that at every rally. The people voted for major government reform, and that's what people are going to get. They're going to get what they voted for. And a lot of times, people that don't get what they voted for, in this presidency, they are going to get what they voted for. And that's what democracy is all about.
Mr. Musk, the White House says that you will excuse yourself from any conflicts of interest that you may have. Does that mean that you are in effect policing yourself? What are the checks and balances that are in place to ensure that there's a
Well, we actually have tried to be as transparent as possible. In fact, our actions, we post our actions to the Doge handle on X and to the Doge website. So all of our actions are maximally transparent. In fact, I don't think there's been, I don't know of a case where an organization has been more transparent than the Doge organization. So, and the kind of things we're doing are very simple and basic. They're not, what I mentioned, for example, the treasury, just making sure that payments that go out, taxpayer money that goes out, is categorized correctly, that organizations that do not pay list, which takes a lot to get there, actually are not paid, which currently they are paid. Simply having sensible in the system itself to ensure that taxpayer money.
But if there is a conflict of interest when it comes to you yourself, for instance, you've received billions of dollars in federal funding, when it comes to the Pentagon, for instance, which the president I know has directed you to look into.
Yeah.
Are you policing yourself in that? Is there any sort of accountability check and balance in place that would provide any transparency for the people?
Well, both are fully public. So if you see anything, you say like, wait a second, that seems like maybe that's, there's a conflict there. I feel like people are going to be shy about saying that. They'll say it immediately.
Including you yourself.
Yeah. But transparency is what builds trust. Not simply somebody asserting trust. So not somebody saying they're trustworthy, but transparency so you can see everything that's going on. And you can see, am I doing something that benefits one of my companies or not? It's totally obvious.
And we thought that we would not let him do that segment or look in that area if we thought there was a lack of transparency or a conflict of interest. And we watched that also. He's a big businessman, he's a successful guy. That's why we want him doing this. We don't want an unsuccessful guy doing this. Now, one thing also that Elon hasn't really mentioned are the groups of people that are getting some of these payments. They're ridiculous. And we're talking about billions of dollars that we found fraud and abuse. I would say those two words as opposed to the third word that I usually use, but in this case, fraud and abuse. It's abusive because most of these things are virtually made up, or certainly money shouldn't be sent to them. And you know what I'm talking about, it's crazy. So, but we're talking about tens of billions of dollars that we've already found. And now a judge is an activist judge wants to try and stop us from doing this. Why would they want to do that? I campaigned on this. I campaigned on the fact that I said government is corrupt. It is very corrupt. It's very it's also foolish. As an example, a man has a contract for 3 months and the contract ends, but they keep paying him for the next 20 years, because nobody ends the contract. You got a lot of that. You have a contract that's a 3-month contract. Now, normally, if you're in all fairness, it's the size of this thing is so big. But if you have a contract and you're in a regular business, you end the contract in 3 months. It's a consult. Here's a contract for 3 months, but it goes on for 20 years. And the guy doesn't say anything about money. You just keep getting checks month after month, and you have various things like that, and even much worse than that. Actually, I guess you call that incompetence, maybe. It could be corruption. It could be deals made on both sides, where I guess the money he kicks. I think he has a lot of kickback here. I see a lot of kickback here. a tremendous kickback, because nobody could be so stupid to give out some of these contracts, so he has to get a kickback. So, that's what I got elected for, that and borders and military, and a lot of things, but this was important in it. And I hope that the court system is gonna allow us to do what we have to do. We got elected to among other things, find all of this child abuse, all of this horrible stuff going on. And we've already found billions of dollars, not like a little bit, billions, many billions of dollars. And when you get down to it, it's gonna be probably close to $1 trillion. It could be close to $1 trillion. That will have quite an impact on the budget. And you'll go